In the last hour before sunset, Daniel Mercer stood at the edge of his driveway, watching the sky dim into a velvet gradient of blue. The street was quiet in a way that felt intentional, as though the neighborhood was holding its breath. He had always trusted silence. It helped him hear the things people hid between their words. But tonight, the stillness felt crowded, filled with the weight of something unnamed. He reached into his jacket for his phone, checking it not for messages but for reassurance. No alerts. No calls. Yet the unease stayed. Inside, Mara moved through the kitchen with her usual deliberate grace, adjusting the flame under a pot of simmering lentils. She listened to the rhythm of Daniel's footsteps outside, each one a familiar punctuation mark in the evening's routine. Her hands were steady, but her thoughts weren't. All week, the clinic had swelled with patients complaining about headaches, palpitations, sleeplessness, symptoms too broad to diagnose, too consistent to ignore. She hadn't told Daniel. Not yet. Not until she understood what her instincts were trying to warn her about. A few houses down, 12-year-old Lily Patel walked home with her backpack slung low, the strap fraying after months of use. She dragged her fingers along fences as she passed them, counting the ridges to keep herself grounded. The walk from school felt unusually long today, stretched thin by a tension she couldn't name. She heard a plane overhead, loud, too loud, yet when she looked up, the sky was empty. She paused, heart ticking faster, then continued walking. Her mother, Anika, was finishing a shift at the urgent care clinic on Westbridge Avenue. The fluorescent lights hummed above her as she updated patient charts, but her thoughts drifted to Lily. She had promised she would be home before dark, but the waiting room had been full again, and her replacement was late. She tried calling Lily during her break, but it had gone straight to voicemail. The unease followed her through every room. Daniel finally stepped back inside, brushing the cool air from his jacket. Mara glanced up from the stove, offering a smile that didn't reach her eyes. He noticed immediately, he always did. He opened his mouth to ask what was wrong, but before he could speak, his phone vibrated. A faint buzz. Then another. Then a sharp, insistent tone he had never heard before. He pulled the device from his pocket, brows tightening. On the screen, an emergency alert glowed in stark red. Unconfirmed strategic incident reported. Stand by for official guidance. The words struck him with an icy precision he felt in his spine. Mara's hands froze mid-motion. Daniel, what is that? He didn't answer. Not because he didn't want to, but because he didn't know how. Instead, he set the phone on the counter between them like evidence of a crime neither had witnessed. Lily's phone chimed with the same alert just as she reached her porch. She stared at the screen, her breath catching in her throat. She didn't fully understand the terminology, but she knew enough from the whispered conversations between teachers this week. She felt her pulse thudding as she fumbled for her keys. In the clinic, Anika's phone lit up with the identical message. She read it twice, then a third time, each repetition stealing a little more color from her face. She steadied her breathing and forced herself to move, to function, because the staff around her had begun whispering, their voices threading tension into the already thick air. For a moment, neither Daniel nor Mara moves. The glow from his phone reflects in her eyes, sharpening the quiet fear forming between them. Daniel feels the shape of the moment shifting, as if the walls of the house tilt by a fraction. He sets the phone on the counter, but its presence feels heavier than it should. Mara reaches for his hand, not out of panic, but out of an instinct to anchor herself to something constant. Lily stands on her porch gripping her backpack strap. The neighborhood feels altered, as though the geometry of houses and lawns has thinned. She watches a dog across the street bark once, then fall silent, ears pinned toward a distant point she cannot see. Lily unlocks the door with trembling fingers, stepping into the quiet of her home. She calls her mother's name out of habit, though she knows Anika is far away. Inside the clinic, Anika forgets the work buzzing around her. She stares at the same alert Lily and the Mercers received, her thumb hovering above the screen, as if afraid pressing it will confirm something irreversible. A coworker asks whether they should prepare emergency protocol, but Anika barely hears. She thinks of Lily walking home on empty streets, her daughter's small shoulders carrying more fear than she intended. Back on Alder Lane, Daniel turns the radio volume up. The static has changed, sharper now, as if something tries to break through. Mara steps closer. The two of them listen, breath held, waiting for the next sentence that might reshape everything. Morning arrives without brightness, a thin discoloration of the sky that feels more like a warning than a beginning. Daniel wakes before the alarm, the residue of uneasy dreams clinging to him as he sits up and listens to the quiet house. Mara is already in the kitchen, wrapped in a careful stillness, staring at the muted glow of her phone as if it were a candle guiding her through darkness. He watches her from the doorway, noting the way her fingers tighten around the device each time it vibrates. The emergency alert has not changed, but the silence surrounding it has grown heavier, as though the world is waiting for something it does not want to receive. He approaches her with a soft greeting that feels too small for the morning's weight. She forces a smile, grateful for the warmth in his voice even as fear coils beneath her ribs. Mara slept only in fragments. Every time she closed her eyes, the faces of patients from the clinic drifted through her mind, their complaints forming a pattern she had not allowed herself to name. Now, with the alert confirming her worst suspicions, she feels the pieces settling into place with a slow, chilling logic. A few houses away, Lily stands at her bedroom window, clutching her backpack, though she knows there may be no school today. She watches the street for signs of normalcy. Neighbors leaving for work, dogs pulling on leashes, cars revving awake, but the block remains unervingly still. Her gaze drifts to the empty sky, searching for the invisible noise she heard yesterday. The memory burrows into her with unsettling clarity. She wonders if anyone else heard it. She wonders if she imagined it. She pulls her hoodie closer as if the fabric could make the morning safer. At the clinic, Anika enters with attention she tries to disguise beneath a professional calm. The waiting room is already half full, though the sun has barely risen. People sit in restless silence, eyes flicking between their phones and the front reception desk. A few whisper in hushed tones, but most simply wait, hands clenched in their laps, breaths held shallow. Anika senses the tremor in the air, the unmistakable sensation of a community bracing for impact. Her co-workers move with stiff, purposeful motions as though coordinating a response they have not spoken aloud. Back on Alder Lane, Daniel turns on the television, not expecting clarity, but wanting proximity to information, however fractured. Every channel loops the same incomplete updates: foreign escalation, communication outages, potential cyber breaches. Phrases like strategic tension and ongoing assessment scroll in tight, controlled fonts across the screen. Mara joins him, arms wrapped around herself, eyes following each word as if any line might unlock the truth they need. She feels Daniel studying her profile with quiet concern. He knows she carries something she has not spoken, and she hates that he can see through her so easily. Lily's morning begins unraveling when a second alert vibrates through her phone, shorter than yesterday's but sharper. School is cancelled until further notice. She stares at the message, panic rising in her throat. She should feel relief, but instead the cancellation feels like proof that the world beyond her window is tilting into unfamiliar territory. She turns to find her father in the hallway, his expression caught between reassurance and dread. He tells her they'll stay home today, that everything is fine, but Lily hears the strain under his tone and knows he doesn't believe his own words. Anika moves between examination rooms as the patient list swells. People describe unusual symptoms: dizziness, nausea, sudden waves of heat, an unplaceable sense of pressure behind their eyes. She examines each one carefully, but something about their timing unnerves her. The complaints began days before the alert. Now they rise in perfect synchronization. Patterns tug at the edges of her thoughts, but she pushes them away, reminding herself that fear can make coincidences appear meaningful. Even so, she can't shake the sense that something invisible has been unfolding long before the nation admitted it. Back at home, Daniel steps outside to check on the neighborhood. A low hum vibrates beneath the morning air, electrical, mechanical, too faint to locate. He walks down the driveway, scanning the street. Half the houses still have their lights on, though the sun has risen. The other half sit dim as though conserving power for something more important. He notices a utility truck parked at the corner, engine idling, workers sitting inside rather than repairing anything. Their outlines look rigid, tense, as if they are waiting for instructions neither of them wants to hear. Mara's fear sharpens when she hears static creeping from the living room radio. She approaches slowly, turning the dial in small increments. The noise thickens, then splits into fragmented voices. Words catch in the static: grid strain, satellite disruption, unverified event, before dissolving into unintelligible hissing. Her heartbeat stutters. She knows this kind of signal collapse. She has studied it in emergency preparedness courses. It doesn't happen randomly. It happens when something large pushes through the edges of the infrastructure. Something coordinated. Something powerful. Lily steps onto her porch, drawn outdoors by an instinct she doesn't understand. The hum grows louder, resonating through her bones. She walks to the curb, pulse racing as she notices several neighbors standing outside, all listening to the same invisible vibration. No one speaks. They simply wait. For what? Lily cannot guess. She crosses her arms against the cold, eyes fixed on the sky that remains too empty, too silent, too expectant. Inside the clinic, Anika receives a message from the Regional Health Board. It is brief and signed and chilling in its ambiguity. Prepare for potential increase in neurological cases. Do not alarm patients. Further guidance forthcoming. Her breath catches. She rereads the message until the words blur. Neurological. Increase. Not alarm. Everything inside her tightens with a sharp, electric dread. She thinks of Lily alone at home, listening to the silence build. By late morning, the hum rises to a low, quivering drone that settles over the town like a shadow. Daniel returns inside, face pale. Mara meets him in the doorway, eyes wide, understanding immediately that whatever is happening has moved closer. They stand together as the lights flicker once, twice and stabilize with an uneasy tremor. Then, from every device in the house, phone, television, radio, a new alert pours through at the exact same moment. A tone deeper than yesterday. Longer. Deliberate. And this time, the message doesn't warn of uncertainty. It warns of confirmation. Night settles unevenly across the town, a dim veil that leaves every surface trembling with anticipation. Daniel stands at the window, watching the streetlights flicker with an anxious rhythm he has never seen before. The earlier alert still glows on his phone, its red border sharpening each time the screen dims. He feels the weight of it settling into his chest, a quiet pressure tightening with every shallow breath. Mara moves behind him, drawn to his stillness as though it might anchor her own. She brushes her fingers along the frame of the window, feeling the coolness of the glass echo the uncertainty gathering inside her. For a moment, neither of them speaks, as if silence is the only language capable of holding the truth between them. Across town, Lily sits cross-legged on her living room floor, watching her father pace in short, uneven lines. He keeps checking the curtains even though nothing moves outside, as if expecting the world to shift while his back is turned. Lily clutches a blanket around her shoulders, not because she is cold, but because the fabric gives her something to hold onto when her breath comes unevenly. At the clinic, Anika stands in the supply room, surrounded by shelves of gauze and saline that suddenly feel profoundly insufficient. She reads the regional advisory again, her pulse quickening as each word presses against her better judgment. Neurological symptoms. Increased frequency. Maintain calm. Provide reassurance. The language feels thin, stretched over something larger and darker than the text dares to reveal. By midday, the strange hum deepens into a steady vibration, a low frequency that seeps into walls and window panes like an invisible tide. Daniel steps onto the porch, heart beating in staccato bursts as he listens to the tremor threading through the air. Across the street, a neighbor emerges, confusion shadowing his features, and the two share a brief, wordless glance that acknowledges a fear neither knows how to name. Inside the house, Mara sits at the kitchen table with her laptop open, scrolling through fragmented reports and contradictory statements that leave her more unsettled with every refresh. She sees maps showing outages across several regions, though none mention her town, and she wonders whether the silence around their area is a sign of stability or simply another omission. She thinks of the patients from the past week, the pattern she tried to ignore, and a realization begins to harden in her mind like stone. Back in the clinic, Anika approaches the front desk, noticing that several patients have left without being seen, their faces pale as if chased by an unseen urgency. She feels the vibration beneath her feet again, stronger now, pulsing like a heartbeat out of sync with her own. Her phone buzzes once more and she reads Lily's message. "Mom, the noise is back." The words strike her with a force she doesn't expect, and a sudden urgency propels her toward the exit. She tells a coworker she needs a moment, but her voice cracks in a way that betrays her fear. As she steps outside, the hum hits her more clearly, a resonant vibration that feels too deliberate to be natural. Daniel notices the shift, too, the hum deepening as if something massive is moving beneath the earth or above the sky. He turns back toward the house, calling for Mara, and she meets his gaze with the certainty he feared she had reached. Something has been happening slowly, quietly, long before the alerts ever arrived. Lily steps onto her porch again, drawn by a pressure in the air that feels almost magnetic. The neighborhood is unnervingly still, as though every house is waiting for the same unspoken signal. She spots her mother's car turning onto the street, and a wave of relief washes through her chest, loosening the fear that has been coiled there since morning. Anika parks abruptly, stepping out with urgency etched across her face, and Lily runs to her, clutching her fiercely. For a moment, the vibration seems to fade, as if giving them space to breathe. But then it returns, sharper, pulsing with a precision that freezes both of them mid-embrace. Far above, the clouds tremble as though stirred by a force pushing through the upper atmosphere, a subtle distortion that ripples outward like heat over asphalt. Daniel steps into the yard, unable to tear his eyes from the shifting sky, and Mara follows, gripping his arm as the vibration sharpens again. The air thickens, charged with a pressure that feels like the moment before lightning touches ground. Anika pulls Lily toward the house, but both stop when the tone returns, low, resonant, spreading through every device simultaneously. It rises steadily, a warning not spoken in words but in vibration, in pressure, in a frequency that threads through bone and breath. And then the message appears, identical on every screen in town, a confirmation none of them are prepared to face. Daniel feels Mara's grip tighten as the text sharpens into focus, each letter a weight settling onto his chest with the force of truth. He reads the words aloud in a whisper, not because they require softness, but because his voice cannot rise against the enormity of what he sees. Mara feels the world tilt as though the ground beneath them shifts with the message, her fears crystallizing into a single, undeniable realization. Anika pulls Lily close as the screen on her phone brightens, the message illuminating their faces with a cold, decisive glow. She feels her daughter tremble, and she presses a hand to the back of her head, trying to shield her from a truth no parent wants to explain. The air vibrates once more as if punctuating the moment, and the sky above them shifts with an almost imperceptible flash, too fast for certainty, but too real to dismiss. Then the final line appears, stark and undeniable, pulling the day toward a darkness none of them can outrun at all now.